Before we begin today's episode, a brief content warning. The second episode we are going to be talking about today is How the Ghost Stole Christmas. This episode does contain depictions and discussions of suicide. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And I don't think we've got any news this week.
I've got a little bit of news, it's very vague though.
Okay.
It's just kind of interesting. The X-Files Museum in Saratoga Springs is on Twitter, just at X-Files Museum, all one word. But they've been posting pictures over the last couple of weeks of certain exhibits they have on display, which is kind of interesting. It's ranged from kind of really quite random props to also behind-the-scenes footage and never-been-seen kind of poster art and concepts for the series. So it's kind of interesting to have a little look through.
Oh, very cool. It'll be nice to go visit one day.
Yeah, bit far for us.
Actually, I do have some news, thinking about it.
Oh, yeah?
Slightly tangential, but I feel it counts. So, you know, there's a Tron 3.
Yes,
stupid
it's
logo.
on the way, yeah.
It's on the way. Gillian Anderson is in the cast list.
Oh, yes, I did hear that the other day.
Ah.
I don't know who she's playing, though.
Neither do I, and I don't think it would actually mean anything if you found out. Given I don't think Tron himself was barely in the last one.
True.
I think he just showed up a bit at the end, and I think he was also heavily CGI'd.
Yeah, Daft Punk got a cameo at least.
Yeah, then so did Michael Sheen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you remember that Michael Sheen and Daft Punk shared the same scene? And do you remember how that went? And you're going, what am I looking at anymore? This isn't Tron!
My optimism for Tron is not high, but
No!
It's always cool that Gillian Anderson's going to be in something.
It is. Well, I suppose if we don't have anything else, we'll have to get into our episodes for the week. In the depths of Season 6. Is this the depths?
Not really the depth.
Okay, in the...
Quarter of the way through Season 6.
So we have Dreamland II, directed by Michael Watkins and written by John Gilnitz, as in Shaban Swartnitz and Vince Gilligan, and first broadcast on the 6th of December 1998, with no change to the guest cast.
From last week.
Everyone who was there last time is in this one, and vice versa. Actually, there's a few extra people, but they don't really merit any kind of mention.
So do you have a synopsis for this episode?
I do, from Wikipedia. Mulder is dragged away by soldiers after the events of Dreamland Part 1, and Scully begins to question whether his story about the body swap was true. Fletcher apologises for telling Kirsch about Mulder's betrayal, and she feigns acceptance of it. After being reprimanded, Fletcher arranges a dinner date with Scully at Mulder's apartment. Meanwhile, Mulder is incarcerated in a cell next to the mind-swapped Lana Che. Later, military police take him to a meeting with General Wegman, Grodin, and Smooge, who believe that Mulder, as Fletcher, was trying to defraud the FBI, not help them. Mulder bluffs his way through the meeting, claiming that the real proof is safe and he did not tell them about the scheme because he did not know if he could trust his colleagues. Mulder again returns to Fletcher's house and tells Joanne that he is Agent Fox Mulder, but Joanne thinks her husband must be undergoing a midlife crisis. At Mulder's apartment, Scully reveals she has been suspended from work, but then swiftly tricks Fletcher and manages to handcuff him to his bed, which he has now installed, including a mirrored ceiling and a waterbed. She demands to know how to return Mulder to his own body. Mulder's informant calls, and Scully forces Fletcher to set up a meeting. By coincidence, Mulder, Joanne, Fletcher, and Scully all arrive at the same bar in Rachel, Nevada, where the informant is revealed to be General Wegman. Wegman admits that he sabotaged the UFO, but maintains he only decided to disable the stealth module so Mulder could see it. Wegman gives Fletcher a flight data recorder in a paper bag. Meanwhile, Mulder leaves and talks to Scully in the car, and is then spotted by Joanne, who sees this as more evidence that her husband is having an affair. Later, Mulder and Fletcher meet in the bar's bathroom and argue about the flight date recorder. They hide from Wegman when he enters, and the scope of the situation is then revealed to him shortly thereafter. The next day, Mulder meets Wegman to discuss the UFO, and Wegman believes that now Fletcher knows Wegman's identity when restored to his own body, Fletcher will turn on him. In turn, Wegman explains that he hoped that Mulder could explain whether aliens actually exist. Apparently, the craft in question are simply given to the military without knowing where they are from or how they work. Scully goes to visit the lone gunman to analyse the flight data recorder, and Fletcher in turn admits to them that he makes up the stories they publish in their newspaper. Later, Scully meets again with Mulder and tells Mulder that she does not think they can restore their own bodies. However, Soon after that, the warp caused by the alien craft begins to snap back and repair the nature of the universe. Grodin, realizing everything will be fixed, gathers up the body-swapped Lana Che and Captain McDonough, and Fletcher and Scully return to Fletcher's house to see Mulder sent by a moving truck, where Joanne has forced him to move out of the house. Joanne again berates Mulder about Scully, but he insists that he and Fletcher have swapped bodies. Fletcher helps Joanne with a chair and confesses that Mulder is telling the truth, and relives part of their former past. Smooge and a group of soldiers appear at the house and detain Mulder, Fletcher, and Scully and the flight data recorder. In transit to Area 51, they are stopped by Grodin, who explains to the group that he's restoring everything as it was to restore his perfect record of government work. He has previously swapped Che and McDonough back into their right bodies. As the warp passes over them, the past few days are rewritten. Mulder and Fletcher are restored to their own bodies and return to the moment when Fletcher's troop pulled them over at the highway. This time, no ship passes overhead and the agents leave uneventfully. Afterwards, Scully confirms that Kirsch has not noticed their trip to Nevada, and finds the strange coin she picked up from the gas station with 2 pennies fused together. Mulder enters his apartment and discovers it has been completely reorganised and redecorated by Fletcher, much to his confusion. This got into the news like last month, but we'll come to that in a bit, because I think the biggest problem with the episode is it's kind of, it was all a dream, but also not, it was all a dream.
Much like Triangle.
But I know this has been one of the things I've sort of complained about over the years, but I don't understand how the end of the episode works.
With some things snapping back and others not, you mean?
Yeah, it's like, there should be no way Scully should have that coin and no way Mulder's apartment should look like that. Because, like, the gas station reverted back to where it was before. Their memory of the last few days has been erased. So, who put the waterbed into Mulder's apartment?
You've also got to wonder about how far-reaching this snapback is, because is Scully still fired, and is Kirsch's secretary still under the impression that Mulder's having a relationship with her?
We don't know the latter, but we know the former, they're fine because of the next episode where you think that would come up. So, yeah, and the past few days are gone because no one mentions the fact that, I thought it was Friday, but now it's Monday.
Yeah.
Where's my weekend gone, Scully?
Because it's just kind of erased things. It hasn't actually done a time travel thing and flipped them back, obviously, because otherwise the room wouldn't have changed.
Yeah, so it's very... I think it's just done for the gag at the end, but at the same time, you should have thought this through properly, because it doesn't make any sense.
Just clumsy.
Yeah. The other big thing I really have objected to this episode for a long time, though, is that thing where Fletcher talks to the lone gunman.
I know you don't like this.
There's 2 sides to that. The one is the whole, as far as we know now, the lone gunmen are just helping the government.
Yeah.
The other part of it, though, is you see the front page of the lone gunman newspapers for like the first time, properly, and it's Saddam's Mandroid Army. And suddenly, they're on a level of the National Enquirer. This is the kind of headlines you get on supermarket tabloids, isn't it?
Yeah, and you thought they were higher brow than that.
We thought they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And every previous episode, and even this episode, it gives the impression that they do know what they're talking about. But apparently they don't. They're easily duped by terrible fake stories.
Much like Mulder himself.
But that really casts a pall over the lone gunman, and as much as you've erased events of this episode, as far as we know, Fletcher was telling the truth. We're not given any reason to think he's not, because he's actually information control at Area 51.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, the Mandroid Army, featuring John Gilnitz.
Oh, yeah, he's an actor.
We said last time we were keeping an eye out to see if John Gilnitz does appear, as he does often appear in the Gilligan's Spotnitz Shaban episodes. The portmanteau of their name will get a character who usually doesn't do too well.
Yeah.
So in this case, he's actually Saddam Hussein.
Yes, and the implications about it's just one of these jokes that hasn't aged desperately well, given the execution of Saddam Hussein, and oh boy.
I think this is going down the same route as, isn't it Arrested Development that has the whole safe house full of Saddam Hussein lookalikes?
Yeah, the different ones.
We're kind of doing that same joke here.
I do actually like Fletcher and Frohey facing off. That's actually quite funny. I like the idea that Fletcher knows who the lone gunmen are. That's fine.
I quite like the kind of domestic glimpse of the lone gunmen as well, where they're all kind of like having their breakfast when it comes
Huevos Rancheros.
Yeah, Huevos Rancheros.
That's nice. I like that. And I do like the fact that, they as much as they're trying to fly under the radar, Cancerman knows who they are because he spied on them. So obviously these Area 51 officials are going to know who they are. And they're quite happy to just leave them alone to do their own thing because they're kind of harmless, as much as they know some things. But to find out that he's feeding them false information that they're just parroting that really doesn't do them any favours.
Yeah, true.
I don't like it.
I know you don't.
I mean, do you not mind, or?
I mind it less, admittedly.
Okay. But still, they're meant to know what they're doing, the Lone Gunmen, though. This is their kind of function, isn't it?
Are they, though? They're overly paranoid conspiracy nuts, particularly Langley.
That's true, but every time Mulder's gone to them for information and things, like, they had got those, the satellite photos that let them track the Piper Maru, for one thing.
Yeah.
So there's a sense they should know some things. Admittedly, the usual suspects did kind of indicate that their entire conspiracy mindset came from Suzanne Medeski from one talk they had with her as she was being grabbed by a black sedan. By Mr. X, no less. Anyway, so that's my problem with it. We do come back to, as you said before, originally, and like every other episode, is that it shouldn't be 2 episodes.
No, there's not enough content here for 2 So a lot of the critiques at the time said that. Like I inferred last week, the critics were far harsher with Dreamland Part 2 than they were the initial, purely because the joke has dragged on for too long now.
Yeah, we've done what we could with it. The other thing I noticed this time, I don't think I never noticed before, is there's some real repetitive dialogue in here, which is really strange. Because it's like when Fletcher meets Wegman in the bar, and he says, "Oh, I disabled it so you could see it." He then gives almost exactly the same speech to Mulder later.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Although that does lead to, I think, the best gag, which, if this was a 1 episode thing, would be the real zinger of, we don't know what these things are.
Yeah. It's a good kind of not twist in the episode, really.
Yeah. And I like it though I think that feeds back into the other problem of a great reveal that the answers aren't in Area 51 any more than they were anywhere else in the United States. And they know they're UFOs. They know they're weird technology or what people think are UFOs, but they don't know if aliens exist, which is great reveal. But I think, though, it also links into that thing of Mulder not being curious about Area 51. Like we said last time, he doesn't look into anything. And at the same time, when Wegman says to him, and I know that presumably the writers know that Mulder can't remember any of this, but it's still kind of off for Wegman to say they're built somewhere up the coast and they just ship them down to us.
Yeah.
Mulder then not say, okay, where are they built? Because clearly I need to go there next to try and figure out what's going on there.
Following the chain.
And that just drops by the wayside as well. So,
well, got a kind of pin put in it indefinitely because Mulder's memory's wiped at the end.
Yeah, and
so you gotta bear in mind that anything we learn in this episode is erased.
I know, and I think that's the frustration because it is effectively, and it was all a dream. And except for the bits that aren't all a dream, because Scully has a weird coin that doesn't make any sense, and Mulder's apartment has been redecorated, and he's got a bedroom now. How many times has Scully been fired now? And how many times has Mulder been fired? Because I think Scully's been technically fired more times than Mulder now.
Yeah, I'd probably say you're right. I think the fact that the ripple effect starts slingshotting back the other way is a problem as well. Just because it doesn't seem to work uniformly, in that we see that they have to take Mulder and Morris back to the point of origin for it to undo. But you've got things like the guy who was fused to the floor in the gas station who they killed is back and well. Did they just leave his body on the floor in the gas station all this time? You would have presumed that they would have disposed of it because it'd still be fused to the floor.
True. They did set it on fire as well, so maybe they just thought that was enough.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. And then you've got, he reversed Lana Che and the captain, and that went fine. But you didn't put them back to where they were because she's got to be in a reservation like miles away and he's got to be in the flying saucer.
And also they should be last if it's going back in order. Lana Che and the captain were the first to be affected, so they should be the last to be fixed.
Yeah. And also, that poor lizard in the rock. Did he get fixed?
I presume not. I presume we did not take the Gila monster back to where they found it.
Well, that's just tragic, really. It's going to boil down to, in the end, always, is the fact that there is a good episode in here. It just needs to be strung out. Because there's a lot of things. I mean, I like the fact that the motivation of the Man in Black is just, I want my perfect record back.
Yeah.
Unbleached surface or everything, and you've just screwed it all up. That's kind of cute. Some of the comedy moments are also great. It's like Mulder and Fletcher confronting each other in the bathroom. And then Wegman walks in, and basically they sort of peer at top of him over the toilet and everything. And that's all great stuff.
I think the problem is that there are just some nice individual little short jokey scenes in there.
Yeah.
Linked with too much padding, too much repetition, a plot structure that essentially means that none of this happened, making, almost 2 hours of watching the X-Files utterly pointless.
Yeah, and that strikes me very much as like Joanne and Fletcher's house and everything is that felt really repetitive, like the third time we've gone around and Mulder's trying to tell her the truth and she's not listening, because of course she's not. Her husband's been very secretive his entire life.
But ultimately she's more open to this than Scully was in the end when Fletcher kind of does a similar thing to what Mulder did in the last episode of telling her the things that only she would know.
Yeah.
Only Mrs. Fletcher believes this outright, and Scully, even with that bee pollen thing, could not be convinced.
I imagine you could put it on that Scully has actually been at the apex of a conspiracy or had it directed against her. Joanne is oblivious to what's going on. So I can understand why this happened. I've never understood why she agrees to the date, though. Because she has literally packed her suitcases to leave. And then Mulder takes her out to a bar. That by chance happens to be the one where Scully, Wegman, and Fletcher are going to be at.
Yeah.
And that doesn't feel deliberate, does it? That feels accidental.
Yeah. No, it is a pure accident as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and that's also just feels sloppy again. The other thing then that's the disconnect of Joanne's about to move out of the house when he goes to the bar with Mulder. And then he abandons her, she's in with Scully, she gets upset, the other man in black takes her home. And then Mulder's got to move out, because I thought she was leaving. Presumably the house is actually his as well, because, well, I don't know.
You don't know what she does.
No, and I suppose, again, I think it comes back to your point last time, is that as funny as his family dynamic is, they are just caricatures.
That was one of the major critiques levelled against it by Paula Vitaris of Cinefantastique, where she said that basically they're a joke, they're just all caricatures, and there is absolutely no development for Fletcher's wife and kids.
No. On reflection, does anything actually happen in this episode other than last episode gets undone?
Once again, nothing important happened today.
I do think as well, that expansion out to 2 parts, I mean, it probably made this point last week, but it sort of kind of bears witness again, is how fast is Scully getting to and from Nevada in this? Again, this episode would make more logical sense if it was all in one, because then you wouldn't have people going to and from Washington. I know that's how you get the Lone Gunman into proceedings, but how long does it take to fly to and from Nevada?
7.25 hours. Assuming we're going to Reno.
So yeah, we don't know quite in Nevada, but we'll use that as a yardstick, because it's not going to vary that much.
Or if you wanted to drive from Washington to Nevada, I believe it's about 36 hours to get there.
Based on previous episodes, there's got to be a hire car they're driving around in.
Yeah, so we'll assume they're flying to a major city and then driving out. I don't know. I actually did try to plot a route to Area 51, but strangely Google Maps wouldn't allow me to do this.
Weird, that.
But yeah, I used Reno as my yardstick. I'm not sure how far that is away from Area 51, though.
No, but we'll go with that, though. But 7 hours?
7.25 hours, yeah.
That's
for,
a lot
for
of to
a
and
flight,
from.
yeah.
That's a lot of to and fromming in these 2 episodes.
That's one way as well.
Yeah. So, let's get this right. So, they flew out there for Dreamland Part 1. Then Scully and Fletcher flew back to meet with Kirsch. Scully then flew back out to go to the gas station. She just took a 7-hour flight to meet an informant she's never talked to at a payphone in the gas station.
Yeah, I think it's something in the UK where, the most it takes us to get to something is like maybe 5 hours on a train.
Yeah.
You forget how impossibly huge America is.
Yeah. And I just feel like it's a flippant thing of, this was written that they were going to stay in Rachel, Nevada or something as a base of operation.
Yeah.
And now they want to do this whole going back to and from DC, and that just makes this impossible.
It's the problem, I think, with us moving our base of operation to California, near a desert area that we want to get our money's worth out of, but still keeping Mulder and Scully based in Washington for the point of the plot.
Yeah, and them using that desert for Area 51, which makes sense. I think basically needed to rip off the drive structure because they need to be in the area for a different reason and detour off this. But nothing about the setup establishes that.
Yeah.
Also, Kirsch is really influential in this episode and doesn't appear on screen.
No, that's true. I don't think he appears in person. He did a bit in the first half.
Yeah, because we got the meeting with him, but then everything else has been just Scully walking back in and telling him that
Kirsch said this.
Yeah, I've been suspended. I've been fired.
I do think my absolute favourite scene in the episode is Morris Fletcher as Mulder trying to seduce Scully.
That's pretty good.
It's a lot of fun inviting her into the bedroom and how Scully tricks him into the handcuffs by playing along with this until she gets Fletcher to handcuff himself and then drawing a gun on him.
Like the whole, he just can't see it coming. That he's genuinely that's a. I mean, Morris. Okay, I don't know what freaky stuff you do in the bedroom, but you are wearing all your clothes when you've handcuffed yourself, which is going to make things a bit difficult.
I just think it's kind of fun. It's how gleeful he is because he thinks he's succeeded here, and for a moment you're actually worried for Scully too, and she just turns it around spectacularly.
Well, on that note, you brought this up as part of Triangle, and it reared its head again. Is we've got Scully talking to Mulder, having the kind of heartfelt goodbye when they think they're stuck like this. And she's saying, I'd kiss you if we weren't so ugly. It's like, what are we doing? Again.
Yeah.
We keep having them confess to each other and then wiping the slate clean by a series of really, science fantasy mumbo-jumbo. It's just making sure this never happens.
It's your Emma Peel effect. It's trying to still do the Avengers will they, won't they, but using sci-fi means to keep removing the will they.
True, although the Avengers, from what I remember though, as much as it was a very much will they, won't they never erased anything. Basically, it was them constantly being together, them getting on so well with each other, but having the obstacle of her absentee husband in the mix.
Who does eventually show up, I seem to remember.
And that's why she ends up leaving the Avengers. Because it's just as they've actually said, he's not coming back, we're going to give it, we'll actually try this. And then he shows up just to derail everything. Then Joanna Lumley and 2 other people enter the cast. I'm not as familiar with the last stage of the Avengers.
No, nor am I.
Or indeed the first. It's only the middle part. That's what everyone remembers anyway.
Yeah.
But I think we keep coming back to the same point of this episode shouldn't exist and they haven't done much with it.
I think and it would take a lot of trimming, but if we trim a lot of the fat from this episode, you could make a very solid kind of comedic one-parter.
Yeah. Just consolidate all Morris Fletcher's family scenes down into one scene.
It's basically all of the comedic parts that just focus on Mulder being Morris Fletcher, because they're so repetitive, is you could do that as one 5-minute joke and get it over and done with.
Yeah.
And carry on.
I think the other thing would be, don't pull the it was all a dream stunt, just let them remember some of it afterwards. I don't know because it's a problem if Fletcher remembers, obviously.
It's always a problem in fiction if you use it was all a dream to erase something. And I know they've tried their best so they can sit back smug and say, aha, it wasn't a dream, it was time dilation, snapping back, or whatever we're using.
What just occurred to me is how I want it to happen is I want Mulder to remember. And the way I think you should deal with that is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, keep bringing this bit up. It's how did I really hurt my wrist? I was hula hooping.
But no one will ever believe you.
Yeah. That's how I want. That's how I think this episode should have resolved. Mulder remembers exactly what happened. He cannot prove a single thing. He got no information from Area 51. Has learned nothing.
And of course, with Scully the skeptic, if you fed this back to her, she would not believe a word of it. She'd just say, "Where's the proof?"
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Scully. The timeline has been rewritten. I can't prove it to you.
Yeah.
Well, that's very convenient, isn't it, Mulder?
Or you have the idea of the deep-seated shame is even if Fletcher remembers this, he can't tell anyone because it's so flippin' embarrassing for him.
Yeah, and to be honest, I suppose actually that's the thing of you could have let Mulder and Fletcher retain their memories because I don't think Fletcher learned anything about Mulder that they don't know.
And at the same time, Fletcher can't admit that an FBI agent wearing his clothes has been running around the building this entire time.
It's fine, as far as I can tell, he looked at no computers and accessed nothing. I think we need to revisit our psychological profile of Mulder because I don't think it's right. So we'll finish off unless you've got anything else for this episode.
You haven't mentioned the song at all.
Well, I was going to say, unless we've got anything else, we'll do the song.
Yep, sure, if you want to talk about the song now.
We'll do the song. Okay, so if people missed this actually blew up last month on Twitter, and it got articles in at least the Mary Sue and Rolling Stone, because when they go to the bar in Rachel, Nevada, there's a song playing in the bar, and most people would have just said, country and western song. It turns out no one could place it. It's a song that's played, you can hear it on the soundtrack. As far as anyone can tell, it doesn't exist. And so this has been a point of debate for many years, and there's been lots of discussions about all kinds of things, and eventually someone talked to the right person on Twitter and was put in touch with the people who produced it. So the song is actually called Staring at the Stars, written and recorded by Glenn Jordan and Don Mafsey. It was never officially released, and it was just created for the episode. They were given like 4 hours to come up with a country and western song to play in this bar. And apparently the big thought behind it was it's a song that would work if you were an alien or you're human.
Yeah, fair enough, it does.
Yeah.
If you listen to the lyrics of it, I can see that.
But yes, it's a song that was created purely for the X-Files. It does not exist in any other context. And somehow that had been a mystery since 1998 to 2023. That just resolved out of nowhere and brought the X-Files into the headlines again. So it's always kind of cool when that happens. Let's vamoose. We've timed this. Oh, we're only a few weeks out because it's Christmas. We're kind of almost close. If we'd sort of shifted things a little bit, we could have actually hit this on Christmas.
Christmas was a month ago.
3 weeks.
I mean, is it going to incur bad luck to talk about it now? All the decorations are down. We're past the 12th night.
You're allowed to talk about Christmas other times of year.
I believe it's forbidden.
Do I have to pull out the whole Die Hard was released in July thing?
There's a whole lot of Who's Down in Whoville that they just set on you for talking about Christmas.
We don't live in Whoville. That's 2 states over. We're fine. They don't know. I've looked at the stats. No one in Whoville listens to us. I can prove this. I don't know if I can prove this. Let's celebrate Christmas in a uniquely X-Files-y way.
In what is basically a Halloween episode.
Yeah, but it's better than the last Christmas episode.
True. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, this is better than Christmas Carol. We'll take this one. Although Christmas Carol would have been better had it been the original idea. You jerks. So for Christmas, let's see how some ghosts stole it. That's terrible. This is How the Ghost Stole Christmas. Written and directed by Chris Carter. Oh, Chris, we have some words. But first broadcast on the 13th December 1998. They couldn't get it any closer, apparently. So, guest stars. Ed Asner as Maurice. Who? Ho ho! He was in JFK. He was in Captain Planet as Hoggish Greedy.
Ah, yeah.
He's in Batman the Animated Series. He's been in one of the Spider-Man series, there's so many of them, as Triple J.
Okay.
He's also been in Freakazoid. He was bizarrely in 3x3 Eyes, which is an anime, which I only know of because of an infamy of it's generally general audiences, but like episode 2 has a horrific scene where a tree kills someone, and basically people freaked out about it. Like, it got an 18 cert for every volume of it, based on this people freaking out over the episode 2 or something.
That's fascinating. He's
been in an episode of SpongeBob.
Yay.
He was in Muppets Haunted Mansion, which is done posthumously.
Okay.
He was in Nice Little Republic 2.
Okay.
But I'm saving the good ones. Because you've seen him in a few things. Like, do you remember Gargoyles?
Yeah.
He's Hudson.
Ah.
So, one thing, because I know this is your bit of trivia, but do it now just because this is funny.
Okay.
So, who was Maurice meant to be?
Bob Newhart.
Bob Newhart, okay. So, would you be shocked if I told you he was an elf?
Oh.
He's Santa.
Oh.
They couldn't get Papa Elf, they got Santa instead.
Oh, that's quite nice.
Admittedly, this is like 2 years before Elf was filmed, but still, what are the chances?
Mm.
And the other one, and the one you'll kick yourself about, he's in a little film called Up.
Oh, is he Carl?
He is. He even looks like Carl.
He does a bit.
The last photo on Wikipedia is a case of, oh my god, he is Carl, isn't he?
I love Up. It's a great film.
It is. So our other guest star, Lily Tomlin, who was Lida, who was their first choice. We haven't seen her in as much, but some significant ones. So she was in the Beverly Hillbillies movie.
Okay.
This is one with Jim Varney played the dad.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I know the one.
Yeah. So she's in there. She's done some voice work because she was in Ponyo.
Ah.
She's been on Frasier. But the one you'll know her for.
Okay.
The one you'll remember her for always. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. She's Aunt May.
Oh.
So she gets to say, live.
Live.
That's her.
That's brilliant.
Thought you'd like that. So would you like to tell us what happens when the ghosts decide to steal Christmas?
If I must.
This is a division of labour. This is how we do things here.
Okay, and largely cribbed from Wikipedia as always. Scully pulls up in her car beside Mulder's after responding to his call on Christmas Eve. Turns out he wants her to investigate a haunted house in Maryland. He explains the history of the house, that at Christmas 1917, a young couple who lived there agreed to a lover's pact, so that means that one killed the other and the remaining one then killed themselves. He explains that this is due to the fact that they couldn't stand the idea of one of them dying and the other one being left alone, so therefore they wanted to spend the entirety of eternity together. How sweet. Mulder also claims that they haunt the house every Christmas Eve and have been responsible for a number of similar deaths in the years that have passed. Even though Scully doesn't really want to commit to this on Christmas, she winds up following Mulder into the house to retrieve her car keys, which he steals, and then the door of the mansion slams shut and locks them both inside. While inside the house, they begin to experience strange phenomena, which are the kind of creaks and weird happenings that you would expect with a haunted house. Eventually, they find a huge library, and while investigating, Mulder pulls up the floorboards to find 2 corpses stashed under there that look like they've been there a while. However, they quickly notice the fact that they're wearing the same clothes that both Mulder and Scully are currently wearing. Each one is dead by gunshot wounds. They decide that they're going to search the other rooms, but find out that they're kind of caught in a loop, and every time they leave the library, they re-enter it through the same door. However, when they try to test this theory, the door snaps shut and separates Mulder and Scully. While the two of them are separated, they meet 2 inhabitants who claim that the house currently belongs to them, Maurice and Lyda. The ghosts both engage in conversation with both Mulder and Scully, slowly goading them into giving up hope and killing each other. Scully is told that Mulder will kill her, and of course does not believe this. However, when she meets up with Mulder, he immediately pulls a gun and shoots her in the stomach. Scully, confused, loses consciousness, and then we shift perspective. It's revealed that it's not actually Mulder at all, it's actually Lyda posing as him. At the same time, Mulder comes across a bleeding Scully lying on the floor. As he leans over to try and administer first aid, Scully awakens and shoots Mulder in the stomach. Again, the audience sees that this is Lyda pretending to be Scully, manipulating Mulder in the same way. As Mulder and Scully both stumble down the stairs and drag themselves out towards the main door, they are covered in massive amount of blood and apparently dying. Both of them accuse the other of shooting them, but Mulder realises that this could not have possibly happened and stands up, realising it's all an illusion and neither of them are hurt at all. The door of the house is now open and they leave. We see Maurice and Lyda sitting by the fire holding hands, lamenting over the fact that they almost had the 2 agents, but ultimately couldn't convince them to kill themselves. At the end of the episode, we cut to Mulder's apartment, where Scully shows up, not wanting Mulder to be alone at Christmas, and they exchange gifts, even though each told the other they would not buy them.
Thank you. It's a lovely Christmas story for the ages.
Yeah, it's a weird Christmas story for the ages.
It is, and at the same time, I remember liking this one in the past, and this rewatch is kind of really just torn out the legs from under it. It's not as good as I remember it.
I'll go the other way, is it's better than I remember it, but I still don't consider it a good episode.
No.
The first time I saw this as a teenager, and I'm not sure I've even watched it since, I just thought it was really boring.
Yeah, it's got very bad pace, and to be honest, I think what really bugged me this time, well, two things is, one is, why is Lyda the only one capable of impersonating Mulder or Scully? Why doesn't Maurice also do equal opportunities playing the other part?
I feel that one of them should have got to each agent.
Yeah, and even just if you do, have them the right way, gender way around, or have them reversed. It's just really odd that Lyda does both.
Yeah.
I don't get that. The other part, though, that really sort of grated this time was when Mulder is talking to Maurice, and Maurice is doing his psychological profiling of Mulder.
Yeah.
Which is pretty accurate. But it's when he gets down to the whole that Mulder's lonely, and that Scully's also lonely. And we talked about this like a few weeks ago of this, according to the AV Club, was the great secret of the X-Files is that everyone in it is lonely. And it's borne out by a lot of things if you stop and think about it. But the creator of the series, to write and direct an episode where someone point blank says to your character, you're lonely, that's bad. You don't do that.
I think it's another strange episode of The X-Files, and it's because it's really a bottle episode that it comes across, because ultimately it's an episode about nothing again.
Yes.
As we only stay in one location, nothing happens. Interestingly, it was also the cheapest episode to produce of the entire season, which you can kind of see in the fact that basically we see very little outside of this library set that they spend most of the episode in.
It feels kind of cheap, doesn't it?
It's like what we saw back on Dodcom,
yeah,
where we've got this one location and we exclusively use it.
At least in Dodcon, though, it's one location and they had the run of the ship, though.
Yeah.
Because just they spent a lot of time in that one room, there were other bits of the ship to go to.
That is, of course, because the library is a set. The exterior is, I think it's called Pika Mansion or something like that. It is a mansion in California, which interestingly we'll see again in a few episodes' time in Rain King.
Okay.
But the interior has just a weird phrasing that Carter used with his intent for that. So he went to ask Corey Kaplan, who's the production designer, to design him a haunted house, and the instruction for the interior mansion set was that it had to be bleak but not too bleak, decrepit but not too decrepit, and deserted but not too deserted. So that's apparently what Chris Carter considers a haunted house.
Right, of course. God.
I mean, I get what he's getting at, but at the same time it's like, so you've described a house.
Yeah, a lived-in house. I think you made a comment, actually, while watching this. Or was it about Dreamland? Or if you want to see the Darren Morgan version.
Oh, that was this one.
That was this one. And it's very hard to not pin down of, given that it does focus on Mulder and Scully being lonely at Christmas, and that's actually his thing.
Especially when you have the lengthy psychobabble speech from Maurice, which I must admit, I think my brain shut off halfway through.
Oh, yeah, it's too long.
But basically, that could be a really good Darren Morgan speech, because we've all said before, Darren Morgan doesn't like Mulder.
No.
So to have this lengthy speech pointing out all Mulder's flaws would be a very Darren Morgan thing to do.
Well, I think it'd also been snappier. There'd been much more would have happened.
And more banter, there'd be more back and forth.
Yeah. And it's the whole, I'd like Maurice and Lyda as characters are fine. I don't think there's a problem with how they're playing each other. And their little interactions are nice. And I do like little things like, why'd you have to do this Lovers Pact on Christmas Eve? Why not Halloween? Like a normal haunting season.
Yeah.
And her response is great, though, who's ever lonely on Halloween?
Mm.
And yeah, absolutely.
It's a very good justification of why this episode happens now.
Yeah, and I like the implication that as much as the house has been condemned, they're trying to keep it around, basically, by spooking people.
Yeah.
And it's things like, oh, you used to have years to drive them psychologically mad, now we've got one night to do it.
Yeah.
And we're only getting ghost hunters in who aren't as easy to do it with.
It's not as well written as Beetlejuice, but it's got that whole kind of feel to it.
I would be surprised if Beetlejuice wasn't in the back of his mind.
Well, I know that the inspiration, particularly for some of the special effects in the episode, was Death Becomes Her.
Yes, I can totally see that. Some of the effect shots are basically they were cutting edge when Death Becomes Her did it. They're kind of routine by this time.
Yeah, they commented on the making of this that they admitted that they ripped the effect off, but said something like, we did it cheaper and better.
Yeah, but then Death Becomes Her was 93. This is 5 years later, and CGI has come a long way.
Yeah, it's quite clever how they do it, though. It's essentially, the effect in question is the one where you're showing a bloodless bullet hole through a person. So, in particular, I think Maurice has one through his head and Lyda's got one through her belly.
Yeah.
But you essentially do it by putting a large bit of luminous cloth over that area, then shining ultraviolet lights on it on set, so you get this tracking shot that can be removed in post.
Yeah.
So, it's actually quite clever.
It's a very good effect, and I've got no problems with that either. It's just, I don't know. Beetlejuice was a very strong vibe because it's very much the couple who are trapped in a house are trying to haunt the new occupants.
Yeah.
But like Beetlejuice also benefits from having weirder production design, more characters, more stuff happening. And you've also got the chaotic element of Beetlejuice himself. You've got someone like Lydia, who you have an analogue in this.
Yeah.
I don't know, rip off Beetlejuice a bit more, Chris. I think that would have worked better.
You also have tried to do the gothic in both of them, but Beetlejuice kind of gets that stylish gothic down a lot better. In this one, we've got the usual, the storm, the howling wind, the thunder and lightning outside, the harpsichord soundtrack to it,
Yeah.
and the occasional nods to things like Arthur Conan Doyle and Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah. And I think that's comes down to, as you said, it looks like a gothic mansion, but it just looks like a gothic mansion. You've not gone hyper gothic or anything.
No.
This is very mundane again, which can work for a ghost story, but I don't think in one this slow moving or with this little time. If you had longer to do it, you might be able to get away with it. But not like this.
Yeah, the critics at the time were, again, kind of split over this one. It's nothing horrendously negative for it, because, ultimately it's not a terrible episode.
No.
But you had some people who were very positive about the writing to it, going to some people who were kind of more middling.
Definitely the middling to bad. It's just, it's not It's not elegant, I think, is the problem with it. It's too blunt with what it's saying.
Yeah, I think that was largely what people picked up on the time. Things like some of the dialogue scenes, particularly the ones with Maurice and Mulder, just go on too long.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Lyda and Scully are much snappier and much faster. I also remembered, and it doesn't really come across, I mean, it does a bit, but when they switch people over, it's like Maurice starts talking to Scully and Lyda starts talking to Mulder, I don't feel they do anything with that either. Because that feels like that should have been they changing tack or something.
Yeah.
And they don't really.
I think that's more, again, you don't like to rewrite them, but someone like Darren Morgan would have picked up on the first attempt didn't work, so we're going to try something different.
Yeah.
And then they swap humans for that.
Yeah. I understand the ultimate plan, or what the episode seems to be saying about the ultimate plan of the ghost, is they want Mulder and Scully to shoot each other when they're down in the entrance hall.
Yeah.
That's when they're actually going to kill each other. I don't really understand how the fake shooting works, and I also don't understand how Mulder figures it out. Because he just kind of knows that they're not dying.
Yeah. I also feel that the shooting really is designed to take place in the library because that's when where they find the corpses.
So yeah, it makes more sense for the confrontation to happen there.
By the fireplace where our telltale heart corpses have been found.
Yeah. I think also it's one of these, Mulder's really slow for some reason.
Well, Mulder is really slow.
But it's the first time you see the body in the floorboards, you go, oh, he's just the same as Mulder is right now. And it takes him until he pulls the whole thing up and sees Scully as well. What, did you not realise this was what's happening? It's really obvious.
It's a good horror trick there. One of my favourite video games of all time, Silent Hill 2, does a similar thing, where you find a corpse and you look at it and thinking, oh, that's horrendous. Like, wait a second, it's wearing a green jacket. I'm wearing a green jacket.
But it's easy to overlook, though. That's a nice Easter egg in Silent Hill 2. That's not as blatant, and I probably would have never noticed had people not said, oh, look, he's watching TV in his apartment. Is he? I don't think that's how that works. But it's a nice unsettling thing. I like the impossible architecture of the house is fine. Like the bricked up doorways is good, and the walking out one door and you come in straight into the same room again.
Yeah.
That's fine. This is all good supernatural stuff. I do feel that we let Scully off with no, Scully, you're going to have to stop and explain how we've gone through 3 identical rooms.
Yeah.
In a house that does not support that size. You're going to have to explain this one, Scully, because I can't.
No, absolutely. Not to mention everyone's got to explain that woman with a hole right through her midriff.
Well, I think this is one of these episodes where we're not actually never going to actually sort of say to Scully, you want to go into what we saw last night, because I think it deserves some criticism and some discussion about this. Did you find the historical events that Mulder relates are actually wrong?
Oh,
Hilariously
yeah.
wrong?
It's just the date in his story is he mentions something like Christmas of 1917 when, loads of American soldiers were dying in the war. America did announce that they'd joined the war in, I think it was April 1917, but at the time they kind of announced this before they were really ready, and they didn't actually join the battle in Europe until kind of mid-1918.
Oh.
So at the time they were not dying in hundreds or whatever he says. Most of Europe were, but America was not.
It's
only if he'd set the date a year later, we would have probably been fine there.
Oh, yeah. I think the other problem is, I think the episode we could sum up with really it's too slow, but it's like even the sting is too slow.
Yeah.
Because there's an awful lot of them sitting in a car with, Mulder relaying the story, and it's shove him in the house, come on.
Yeah. The X-Files over the last few episodes, though, and it might just be the tone of the episodes, has kind of lost its way with these stings, and the fact that they're supposed to be snappy and scary and make you want to keep watching.
Yeah. Well, I would say Triangle wasn't too bad, because that's Mulder drowned, apparently, in the middle of the ocean. That's a pretty decent one.
I think your last decent one's been Drive, to be honest, with the woman's head exploding at the end of the opening sting. It's like, all right, yeah, that was scary, that was gory, I want to know what's going to happen.
Very much so. I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting when we get to the end of the season, given at the start we had the thing from the fans of there are too many comedy episodes in a row, and yeah, we are mired in some really odd choices at this point.
Yeah, there was one of the reviews I read of this was Tom Kesinich. I might not be pronouncing that right, but he wrote the book Examination, an Authorized Look at X-Files Seasons 6 through 9. He kind of gave this really mixed review of the episode. He was pretty open with saying there were a lot of things he liked in it, but his comment was, okay, I liked a lot of this episode, but while I've enjoyed the sheer entertainment value of the past 3 shows, I'm longing for something a bit sinister and darker. Which I think is absolutely fair. It's, other than the first 2 episodes of the season, since then we've just had this slog of comedic episodes, which don't really have any of the kind of X-Files darkness that we've seen before.
No, and also, it's hard to get away from these, like, the substandard comedy ones, and I haven't really had substandard comedy ones before. This is, like, a new low we've hit.
Yeah.
I think the closest you've got is the Great Mutato, I forgot, Postmodern Prometheus, and that's a very divided opinion in fandom anyway, but it's certainly meant to be comedic.
I think in tone it's very similar to this episode as well, the Postmodern Prometheus.
But then it's the Postmodern Prometheus went all out with the gothic sensibilities and the black and white filming and everything.
And the fairy tale soundtrack.
Yeah, and this, well, as you said, this one's got a harpsichord, which is unfortunately more evocative of the Addams family than sort of gothic stuff at this point, isn't it?
No, I'd say it's a gothic instrument. I mean, it's from the right period in
It is
history.
from the right period. But then it's also shot entirely in colour. And as you said, also with that, you can't get away from the cheapness of it, of it's one set.
Yeah.
An awful lot is happening in one set. And you're using, and it's not like Cube, famously, the set is 1.5 cubes.
Yeah, but they light it in different colours.
Light in different colours, and they orient it in different directions so that you get the different effects from it. And that's also part of the whole basis of Cube, is you've got the massive grid of interchangeable rooms.
Mm.
This is, we have one set, and we are trying to save money. We can't do anything else with it.
Guess we've got to recoup that money we spent on Triangle somehow.
Yeah, let me just scrap Triangle and do something else. Maybe stop letting Chris Carter direct these episodes.
Mm.
Maybe stop letting him write him as well. When was the last time we liked a Chris Carter episode?
Was there one?
Darkness Falls, he did.
Oh, yeah, I'll give him Darkness Falls.
He liked Darkness Falls. And we have to give him some credit for the pilot, otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
After that, we get a bit muddier.
I think sometimes I just want the series to go down the route of from the mind of Chris Carter, and then we'll have someone else write the episode.
It's an awkward one, I think, when you've written the pilot, because there's always an expectation you'll be contributing more to it, and particularly the major plot stuff, since he's usually involved in the conspiratorial stuff somewhere. At the same time, I mean, I feel like I keep on picking on Chris Carter, and this is a major thing when we get to season 10 and 11 of, as much as it was boasted, Chris Carter's back to take control of the X-Files, the reaction ultimately is, could he not? Could he just hand it off to someone else?
I know a lot of the fan base, while they appreciate Chris Carter for being the creator of the X-Files, don't rate him as a writer especially. It is a common thing. It's personally, I'm Team Gilligan all the way. Yeah. I'm always happy when you tell me it's going to be a Vince Gilligan episode. It's like, oh, thank you.
Well, it used to be if it's a Darren Morgan episode, now it's if it's a Vince Gilligan episode, and he will be with us. I don't know when he drops off, because he's not one who comes back later on in 10 and 11.
That's a shame.
I don't know if he makes it to the end of 9. We'll find out, obviously. We're going off topic.
Yeah.
But then again, it's because How the Ghost Stole Christmas isn't... I'm sure fandom was actually very pleased that Mulder and Scully almost got into a Lovers Pact.
And spent Christmas together.
I mean, the Lovers Pact thing, though, I would say they did not agree to this. This was them manipulated by Ghost into killing each other.
Ghosts who have decided they're in love as well.
Yeah, based on the fact they're just two individuals who, I mean, in some cases, even if you don't want to do it as romantic love, there's platonic love, because if Scully didn't love Mulder, she would not be there, because you couldn't give in someone who didn't like...
Well, we know by this point it's clearly this...
mutual thing.
Mutual. They do have a romantic love, but neither of them have admitted to it, and you can quite plainly see that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we've been able to argue since about late season 1, early season 2, that there is definitely a platonic relationship there. They care for each other deeply, they will defend each other.
Exactly. And they voice as Christmas presents, which we can grossly speculate on.
Yeah, there's some suggestive shaped parcels there.
When I watched this in university, because this was the first episode I saw in halls.
Okay.
And 3 of us had working TV, so we all sat down and watched it individually and made it up afterwards. And everyone's conclusion was the same thing, of what each has bought the other.
Yeah.
Because Mulder's is a rectangular block shape, which looks a lot like a VHS tape.
Yep.
Don't really want to speculate what's in there, but I think we can make some educated guesses. There are 2 possibilities for what's in Mulder's package. One of them is the autopsy tape from Jose Chung, or something like it.
And the other is World's Deadliest Swarms?
Yes, but as the soundtrack suggested rather than what the visual suggested, shall we say. And Scully's, it's unfortunate, it's a cylindrical object of some...
Let's say it's maybe about 6 inches long.
Yeah, it's too narrow to be a bottle of wine. It could be one of those mini bottles of spirits, which makes Mulder a horrendously bastardly cheapskate.
Maybe he's just bought us some hairspray or something.
Maybe he's got some hairspray.
It's a normal thing to own your own personal massager.
It's not something normal for your co-worker to give it to you.
No, that is a bit weirder. Your platonic co-worker.
Your platonic co-worker.
Maybe if you've got a certain relationship, a weird Secret Santa present.
Yeah, or you have... I think the only other way to scope I can see is former lovers who are extremely comfortable with each other. Even then, it's going to feel a bit weird.
Yeah.
There aren't many circumstances where this makes sense.
I think it's very much an item that you would buy for yourself rather than receive as a gift.
Quite so. I'm sure some people do give us a gift, and it's possibly made a joke. The thing about it you've got to say is, though, that this was a conscious choice on the production team. Because think of every other fictitious present you've seen, which is a rectangular box of no discernible presents.
Yeah.
With a ribbon wrapped around it.
Yeah.
That's what you give someone as a present if you don't want to specify what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
The fact that they've gone to that specificity means someone knew what that present was, or at least what it was alluding to.
I did go looking.
You can't unsee it, can you?
No, you can't see it. I did go looking to see if there was anything where they'd address this, and I can't find anything. It's left to the imagination, I imagine.
I imagine someone has tried to ask this, and it's a case of, what are you doing?
I imagine it's been left to the realms of fanfiction.
Yeah. What time of morning is this happening?
It's got to be early because Mulder comments about, don't you want to be with your family?
And it's dark outside. I mean, the implication is Mulder hasn't slept since he got home from the haunted house, which was at midnight when they left.
Yeah.
I know it's not specified. I keep thinking it's like 3 a.m. You go, Scully, what are you doing?
Good point.
Why are you here? I don't have anything further than that. Do we have anything else for this episode? Or should we?
No, I think you've summed it up.
We'll head on to the New Year's episode next week.
Yep.
That's kind of a lie.
The new year's episode, which must be Terms of Endearment.
Yes, so next week we get Terms of Endearment and Rain King. And in the meantime, if you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media, and please do hook me up if you would like me to promote any of your X-Files things, including conventions, contests, neat pieces of artwork, whatever you've got on the go at the start of the show. We are on Twitter and Tumblr at GetStrange42. We are on Mastodon at GetStrange42@universedon.com, and on Facebook, where you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. Additionally, and if you're not sick of my voice right now, I also have a channel on Twitch TV called AdverseCamber42, and another channel on YouTube where old episodes are posted a couple of days after I stream them. I stream live on Twitch on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT, and on Saturdays at 5 PM GMT, where I just talk through whatever I'm currently playing on the PlayStation 5, which is currently Yakuza Like a Dragon.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange, where you can find our attempt at a review of Mulder and Scully by Catatonia, which is at least brief, and our Let's Play of the first X-Files game on the PlayStation. We will be doing other exclusive content, like we'll be getting into the books, into the comic books, into the other video game, into the board games, if we can actually get hold of any of them, and any other ephemera, like trading cards, if we're really desperate. I'm not sure what we're going to do with trading cards, but we can do those.
True.
If we have them. Our theme music is Envision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on Comtech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember...
Resist or serve.